I'm struggling right now. I've gone through some big changes in my career and my life. Gotten rid of my agent, got rid of my first wife. I gave her everything. So I'm starting over from scratch. Just signed away everything in December.
Chip Foose became a household name through the hit show Overhaulin. Each episode showcased his talent for custom car design and the emotional stories of unsuspecting owners whose vehicles were transformed. Fans loved his creativity, his calm leadership, and the way he turned rusted relics into rolling art. However, recently, many have wondered what's happening in his life and if he is still building. Join us as we explore what happened to the legendary car designer. In late November 2018, Chip hit one of the hardest days of his life. His dad, mentor, and closest friend, Sam Foose, died after a fight with cancer. On Instagram, Chip broke the news that his father, Sam Foose, had died. In his post, he wrote that Sam wasn't just his dad, but also his hero and his best friend, and that he'll be missed for the rest of his life. He added photos of them through the years. Sam was 83. To car lovers, he was more than just Chip's dad. He was a builder people respected and a regular on Overhaulin, helping out on many of the show's projects. Born in Southern California in 1934, Sam loved cars from the jump. When his family left for Arizona in 1948, he stuck around in Santa Barbara, crashing in a friend's garage and fixing cars to get by. That's where he learned to weld, paint, and fabricate. He worked crazy hours, and his wife, Terry, would bring food to the shop so he could eat with their kids, Lindy, Chip, Jody, and Amy. After the Korean War, he got into the custom car world for real. From his shop, Project Designs, he built hundreds of custom pieces. A few stood out: a 1949 Ford Coupe, a 1956 Lincoln Continental MKII, the Wild Diacosa 200, and a wild take on a Di Tommaso Pantera. His line was simple: less is more, but doing more with less is better. More than the cars, though, Sam's biggest gift was teaching Chip. Chip grew up in that shop and learned lessons that stuck, like Sam's warning that trendy design dates faster than bell-bottoms on a hippie. Their bond even played out on TV, like the time Sam secretly rebuilt Chip's 1956 Ford F100 and surprised him on Overhaulin. Sam's death left a big hole in Chip's life, but not long after, other personal struggles started to surface and test what he'd built at home. In November 2019, Chip Foose's marriage to his wife, Lynn, came to an end. After years together, Lynn filed for divorce in Orange County, California. For fans of Overhaulin who had seen Chip's family life woven into his career, it was a big and surprising shift. Chip and Lynn first met in the 1980s and then got married in 1990. This was right after Chip graduated from school at the Art Center College of Design. From the start, their lives mixed family and work. In 1998, the two launched Foose Design. Chip poured himself into the creative work while Lynn handled the books, the contracts, and the business details that kept the shop running. Together, they turned it into a worldwide name, all while raising their two kids, Brock and Katie. But as the company grew, so did the strain. By the 2000s, Chip was gone most of the time, long days at the shop, constant travel for Overhaulin and car shows. Lynn carried the weight at home and managed the business side, but after a while, their separate roles started affecting their marriage. By the end of 2019, Lynn had filed for divorce. A few months later, in early 2020, Chip filed his response. What followed wasn't easy. The divorce itself dragged on. It wasn't quick or clean. There were constant filings over money, property, and custody, and by 2022, the whole thing was still unsettled. The divorce also changed the business they had built together. Reports showed that Chip handed over big assets, including the Foose Design Shop, while keeping his own cars and tools. Lynn stepped away from the company after more than 20 years, closing the book on their working partnership as well as their marriage. Despite all the personal battles, Chip also had to fight to protect his designs and image from imitators. After his shop, Foose Design, Chip created signature car parts known for their unique, sleek styling. They became so popular that others began imitating his work. This was no longer about custom builds. It was about people using his name and reputation to deceive. Back in 2012, Chip took to his Facebook page with a warning. He called out a company named Super Replicas, saying they were using his name and even cutting up videos to make it look like he was working with them, which wasn't true. Chip was clear. He said that he and Foose Design had nothing to do with Super Replicas or any of the names they operate under. For a while, fans thought the issue had ended, but in 2016, Chip had to repost the same message on his official blog site. The problem was still going on. Super Replicas was still claiming he endorsed their products. They were even misusing photos of his father, his co-workers, and, most disturbing, his sister Amy. who had passed away from progeria, a rare genetic disorder that causes rapid aging. Chip said the company was even claiming that money from their cars was going to kids with serious illnesses. For him and his family, that was tough to hear. He also talked about a man named Rither Sanchez who took a video from a public event in Panama and twisted it to make it look like Chip had met with super replicas for business. The truth was simpler. Chip had been in Panama on behalf of his sponsor, BASF Automotive Paints, and Sanchez had just waited in line with the rest of the fans. Later, Sanchez edited the footage to create a false story. So Chip put out a clear warning. He told his fans not to believe the lies. There was no secret deal, no hidden video, and no partnership. The only real updates, he reminded everyone, would always come from Foose Design, his website, or his verified pages. The issue was an example of how valuable his reputation was, but also how vulnerable it could be to misuse. However, unlike other builders who dealt with legal battles in court, Chip chose to fight back by speaking directly to his fans. It was less about lawsuits and more about protecting trust. Still, while legal disputes were draining, the personal losses that followed would hit Chip even harder. In August 2019, Chip Foose went through another heavy loss. His former Overhaulin co-host, Jessi was killed in a crash while trying to set a new women's land speed record in Oregon's Alvord Desert. She was only 39. Jessi had been around cars her whole life. Born in 1980, she went on to study collision repair and fabrication at Wyotech, and it didn't take long before people noticed she had real skill. From there, she moved into TV. She co-hosted Extreme 4x4 on Spike, popped up on Mythbusters, and later joined All Girls Garage. People admired her because she wasn't just talking, she was in the shop, building, and proving she belonged. Her first tie to Overhaulin came in 2004 when she was one of 30 Wyotech students invited to help Chip's crew rebuild a 1967 Mustang. When the show returned in 2012, Jessi came back as a full-time co-host. She appeared on the show until 2015, starring in more than 50 episodes. Unlike many hosts, she welded, fabricated, and got her hands dirty, which gave the show a real spark. On August 27, 2019, she was behind the wheel of a jet-powered car going over 500 miles per hour when the front wheel failed. The crash took her life. A year later, Guinness stepped in to make it official. Her run clocked in at 522.783 miles per hour, sealing her place as the fastest woman ever on four wheels. The loss hit the automotive world hard. Racers, builders, and fans all shared tributes. Discovery, the network behind Overhaulin, unveiled a memorial gallery, and later a documentary titled The Fastest Woman on Earth, which showed her record attempts and the risks she took chasing them. For Chip, it was personal. He had worked side by side with Jessi during the later Overhaulin years. After she passed, Chip shared photos and wrote a few words about her online. He called Jessi a vibrant partner who poured herself into every build. The timing of her passing made it even tougher. Chip was already going through a painful divorce, and losing Jessi on top of that felt like another weight he wasn't ready for, especially due to their connection on Overhaulin. When Overhaulin premiered on TLC in 2004, it changed car television. Unlike other shows that focused only on the technical side, Overhaulin mixed heartwarming pranks with stunning builds. The idea was simple. Convince owners their car was gone, then reveal that Chip Foose and his crew had secretly restored it. With co-hosts Chris Jacobs and Adrian A.J. Janik, Chip turned rusted relics into masterpieces. The show ran until 2008, then returned to Velocity, now Motor Trend, from 2012 to 2015. Across more than 100 episodes, fans saw not just the builds, but also the emotions of families and veterans seeing their cars reborn. In November 2015, after 11 years on and off air, the show was canceled. Costs had grown too high. Each build demanded a week of non-stop work and long nights. Sponsors like MagnaFlow and teams of fabricators helped, but the workload was intense. Rumors also spread that parts of the show were staged or that sponsors carried the costs of parts. But these claims never led anywhere, and they soon faded. Years later, Chip would get another shot at making the show a stable once more. In November 2019, Overhaulin returned after 4 years away. The reboot, called Season 10, came out on the Motor Trend app with 12 episodes. For longtime fans, it felt like the show had slipped right back into its old groove. Chip Foose was still running the builds, with Chris Jacobs and Adrian Janik right there beside him. Together with the A-team of fabricators, they brought back the same recipe that made the series a hit in the first place, pranking owners into thinking their car was gone, then revealing a dream build weeks later. The season kicked off at the SEMA show in Las Vegas, where the crew revealed their first project live, a 2014 Corvette Stingray done in two-tone paint for a former heavy metal singer. That reveal was pushed on social media and made clear the team was trying hard to get fans involved. Each episode followed the same formula: a nomination, an emotional backstory, the prank, and then the long hours of tearing a car apart and rebuilding it with Foose's signature design touch. Owners weren't charged for the work, though they had to handle taxes on the increased value. The stories were meant to hit hard. One episode centered on a Navy veteran's Mustang, another on a cancer survivor's Challenger. One of the most talked about moments came when Shaquille O'Neal showed up. His '64 Impala got the Foose treatment and ended up being one of the season's biggest builds. But despite the excitement, not all feedback was positive. Fans praised the artistry and emotional reveals, yet many complained that the reboot leaned too heavily on drama and recycled pranks, leaving less time for actual fabrication details. Not everything landed well, though. A few owners later complained about problems with their cars, from engines overheating to parts that seemed chosen more for sponsors than for quality. Those kinds of reports left some viewers questioning the quality of the rebuilds from Chip and his team. By July 2020, the season was over and the show went quiet again. COVID also slowed production, the cost of production also increased, and the format of the show was becoming repetitive. The biggest issue, though, was that fewer people were watching. What was meant as a big streaming revival ended up lasting just one season. However, even before the reboot of Overhaulin aired on Motor Trend, Foose's impact on the industry was being recognized. At the 2019 Grand National Roadster Show in Pomona, California, Chip Foose received the first ever Builder of the Decade award. For many in the car world, it was no surprise. The Grand National Roadster Show, known as the Granddaddy of them all, began in 1950 and is best known for the America's Most Beautiful Roadster Trophy. At its 70th annual event, organizers introduced a new honor that looked at the past 10 years of custom car building. Foose was their choice. His record made the decision easy. He had already won the AMBR several times, along with the Riddler Award in Detroit. His TV show, his design work, and the projects from his Huntington Beach shop had shaped much of hot rodding in the 2000s. To celebrate, the show gathered 12 of his best-known cars, the largest display of Foose builds ever, including Impression and Grandmaster. On January 27, 2019, Foose accepted the award, thanking his family and crew. Some debated whether one man should get the credit, but many agreed his vision defined the decade. To this day, he remains the only builder of the decade, and he has been working to pass the legacy to his son. Just like Sam once did for him, Chip is now doing for his own son, Brock. The lessons that began for Chip in his father's garage are now being passed down in the same way. Their bond is most clear in the projects they take on together. In 2019, Brock appeared on Overhaulin, adding leather details to a custom build. It was a small contribution, but it showed his growing comfort in the shop. By 2023, that confidence had grown into full collaboration. Chip and Brock spent days modifying the exhaust system on Brock's own Mustang. Chip guided each step, from cutting and welding to alignment checks, turning it into a classroom built around patience and problem-solving. Later, Chip described that moment as better than a day at the beach, proof of how much he valued teaching his son. In recent shop tours, Brock now leads fans through builds like a 1956 Bel Air, a 1955 Dodge, and Chip's personal C10. He points out design choices and explains technical details with ease, a sign of how much knowledge he has absorbed under Chip's watchful eye. Chip often notes that Brock brings fresh energy to the shop, while still respecting the timeless principles of design that Sam once passed down. Together, they even present awards, like the Sam Foose Memorial Design Award, linking 3 generations in a single moment. For Chip, mentoring Brock is about more than passing down skills. It is about carrying forward a philosophy. Good design is timeless, and craftsmanship means everything. Through these collaborations, Chip is not just teaching his son how to build cars. He is showing him how to carry the Foose legacy into the future. Chip isn't chasing TV deadlines anymore. These days, his focus is back where it started, inside the shop, working on cars. At Foose Design in Huntington Beach, the floor is filled with projects in different stages. In 2025, he's been working on a 1962 Corvette that just went into paint, a 1956 Lincoln Continental with a new blueprint engine, and a 1949 Cadillac that's being fully rebuilt. A 33 Ford sedan is also in progress. Fans often get to see updates through his son, Brock, who has started sharing more of what happens behind the doors. Chip still makes time to appear in public. At SEMA 2025, Chip was out with Real Truck working on a custom F-150. He spent time right on the floor showing people what he was doing. A little earlier, he flew up to Toronto for the Motorama Expo. There he sat with fans, sketching cars and answering whatever questions they had. For anyone who grew up watching Overhaulin, it felt the same. Chip was still drawing, still building, nothing much had changed. Mentoring has become a bigger part of his life. Chip is involved with SEMA's Young Guns program, where young builders compete and learn from veterans. In 2025, he also joined the RPM Apprentice program, giving students a chance to learn restoration work directly. Builders who've spent time with him often say he takes his time with them, never making it feel rushed. He's also kept up his charity work. In January 2025, a Ford F-150 chip he worked on was displayed at the Barrett-Jackson auction. It sold for about $150,000, and the money was sent to the Progeria Research Foundation, something tied to his sister's memory. Later that year, he worked on another project with SEMA Cares, a big Ford F-350, which ended up raising $200,000 for kids' charities. Chip has used his skills this way for years, turning builds into fundraisers for causes that matter to him. At 61, Chip is no longer tied to TV schedules. He's in the shop, on the road for events, and working with the next generation. Fans still wonder if Overhaulin will come back, but he doesn't seem in a hurry. He looks more interested in steady work, teaching, and spending time with his family.